Welcome to Jordan's Journals. I'm Representative Joe Jordan, and today I'm going to invite one of my great friends to discuss ocean resources and the protection of the resources, since my coastline is mostly all ocean resources. So I'd like you to be introduced to Carl Jellings, Sr.
Hello, Joe.
Aloha, Carl. So appreciative of you being here. Could you kind of give us a little bit of your background, who you are, what you've been doing, and the kind of work that you do?
I'm a commercial fisherman. I've been started from kid time, surfing and diving and fishing, and I was born and raised in Nanakuli. And my dad was a fisherman. We fished out of Pokai Bay, the old Pokai Bay. And then they built a new harbor, and now we're fishing out of the new harbor. We fish mostly for akuli, big-eyed scat. And I got involved in this because over time we've learned that our resource, the akuli that we depend on, are very sensitive to sound. So, the impact of sound, has an impact on the resource that we depend on. So, I mean, it goes back to the early 1900s, where a person came forward and he mentioned that Japanese sampans in Pokai Bay was disrupting schools of akuli in Pokai Bay. And then Hawaii Kai, we had another Lavaya over there. He talked about working with the Army when they did their operations offshore, so that they wouldn't disrupt his schools. And it just, it's all over the state. Kealakekua.
So the type of fish that you, I guess, farm or catch is raised in big schools?
They aggregate in big schools, and there's a season for them.
Oh, okay, so certain times of the year.
Yeah.
So the schools are in, like, certain places, or do they always come back and migrate back to the same place?
Yeah, the koas off of Waianae. Keavula, Makua, Makaha, Pokai, Nanakuli, and Kahi. Yeah. Okay,
so that's where you would normally see your type
those are
of
normal
schools.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. How long have you been fishing off the coastline?
Since the 60s.
Wow.
And I got my license in 1978.
Oh, that's a while.
In 63, I made my first trip with my dad. Night fishing for Opelo and Akuli.
So you do either night or day fishing?
No, normally we do fishing during the daytime, but with my dad we fished at night.
Oh, okay. So now you focus more on the day fishing.
Yeah, we use gear. We use seine or gill nets to catch akuli.
So over the years, has your industry been impacted?
Yeah, we were out there when there was only fish divers. There was no tour boats when we first started fishing. Then we had the dive boat start up. One, and then I think by '96 there was 4 or 5 dive boats, but they didn't impact us at all. They were offshore. And
so a dive boat would be somebody that goes snorkeling.
They would scuba dive.
Scuba dive. Oh,
scuba lessons, or they would do the wrecks at a mahi or the airplane off Pokai and
but that really
Makaha
wasn't
caverns.
An impact.
Yeah, they were real.
But coming forward, the industry changed?
Yeah, in '96 when the dolphin tour started, the dolphins and the akuli share the same habitat. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So now we had dolphin tours coming to where the Naya were, but the akuli were where the Naya were. Yeah. So now we're having impacts.
Oh, so now we have a mixture of a resource that we consume, the fish that you fish, and then animals that people want to go and visit.
Yeah.
So
using the same habitat. Yeah.
So it'd be like in the same area.
Yes.
And you'd have two different conflicting industries. I guess that's what we'd be saying, right? And then you started noticing that impact upon your schools. So did we lose some of the schools, or did the reduction of the schools start happening?
The areas that the akuli would come to, like Makaha, because the boats come to snorkel there primarily from 9 o'clock to 2 o'clock, the Akuli would move off and they would go somewhere else. They would, and Kahi the same. Wherever there's a lot of activity and a lot of noise, the Akuli is not going to stay there. They're going to move away from the noise, away from the activity.
So when they do that, do they ever come back, or do they start a new habitat somewhere else?
We noticed that when the boats aren't there, the Akuli are there. But as soon as the boats come, they move. Like the Makaha, for example, the Makaha Akuli will move to maybe all the way down to the cabanas, the Makaha cabanas in that cove, or off of Keys Beach or Cosmars. You familiar with those places?
Yes.
Yeah. So they would just move away from the noise.
So then you can track them down that way and,
Yeah,
and still be able to fish.
Yeah. But the part that a lot of times hurts us is that the fish want to be in the sand, because there's a big sand channel in Makaha. That's what they want to be in, but the disruption moves them off, and then they go to Cosmars, which is really shallow water, and then we have surf and all that kind of other stuff. So we cannot.
So then it would impact your industry
we
and
cannot,
how you.
We cannot fish.
You fish.
Like today, we cannot fish.
Okay.
It's high surf, so.
So if the fish would traditionally be in an area that you could practice your fishing, and then they get impacted by a commercial venture such as a tour or diving, then they move into another area that might not be so conducive because
may or may not.
the wave structure, or it's too shallow for you to do your surrounding, or it just makes it impossible for you to even go after that particular school. So then that would impact you. And your business isn't something that I just start up my motor and go out today, right? I mean, you prepare for a day, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of preparation, and it's not. It takes months to prepare for a season.
Oh, that's right. You said it was a seasonal one, so the season runs X amount of months out of the year, and you prepare the rest of the year for that heavy season.
Yeah, and then we fish 3 months real hard, and then we take a break,
and then you take a break,
do it all over again.
Get your equipment back up to gear, wait for the next season. So then you might even have the impact of maybe the different seasons, like the different wave actions, or the impact of maybe tropical storms or stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
So you're a very fragile industry.
Sometimes we have a small window. You might have only one day in a whole week, or like 6 hours in a whole week, where a wave would drop. Then we're expecting another big swell. So that's why sometimes when I go talk to these captains, and I'm not too nice, but I try to be polite, but it's really hard because this is one shot, and then the surf is up the next day, so you lose that one shot, and then you gotta wait till the surf drops, and you can try again.
But the type of fish that you catch, that's a fish that is eaten here in the islands, right? That's one of the more wanted delicacies in our islands. And it's not something that's really shipped off island.
No, it's
so
consumed here.
It's consumed right here. So you're talking about an impact on your source of revenue, as well as food source that stays here in the islands. It doesn't get shipped out. So when you're saying you might have a six hour period, or maybe a 1 week period, it's very sensitive that if somebody does a different activity within your working environment, it can pretty much destroy what you're going to do.
The markets, when there's no fish, the markets suffer, because they have these employees that count on us too, Well, our fish, it's not just us, it's in the markets, and then it's a whole thing.
It's this pyramid thing. So you have the market that you sell it to, then you have the people that purchase it, and maybe the restaurants that buy it. I mean, there's this whole ladder that counting on you to make sure, the season's coming, we need X amount, we know we can produce this amount, and if you lose out on that, it doesn't come from somewhere else, right? We don't import these type of fish. Oh, okay, so I mean, so we're talking about a resource that's sustainable here in Hawaii. Now, how do we keep that sustainability with our near shore waters, right?
Well, in 2000, there was a resolution to come up with this with this plan, and the community got together, and then, what came out of it was a gentleman's agreement between fishermen and tour operators. And now, the tour operators are very respectful when we're actually doing our fishing, but when we're not fishing, you still have to respect the resource. I mean, that's what the whole thing was about. It was about the boats running over the resource and displacing the resource and changing their the habitat, the characteristics of the resource within that habitat.
So like, I've always heard that along our coastline, we used to have like 7 koas. And koas, you can help me with this, I guess is an area where the fish come
year after year for millions of years.
To spawn, to come back, to do what they need to do. And you know these areas, and that's where you fish on a traditional practice. Don't take in too much. Make sure you protect the resources. So my understanding is we used to have 7 koas.
Yeah.
And now we only have like 3 koas.
Yeah.
Pretty much left.
Yeah.
And we're talking a whole coastline. And that, to me, is we're hurting our resource. We're hurting our sustainability in this particular type of fish. And I guess once a koa is gone, I don't think we can recreate those, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, and that's kind of, like you're saying, there's this gentleman's agreement. And that was between commercial fishermen and vendors of commercial activity operations, correct? And over the years, we've struggled with that. And we're talking maybe like 12 years now.
Yeah.
And it's retraining individuals on this agreement.
Yeah. The captains, I don't know what is it, but the captains on the tour boats, they're always changing, new captains, and if the old captains are fine, but every time you have a new one, that's the one that you got to worry about.
So when we're talking about these commercial activities, we're actually talking about like dolphin tours, we're talking about diving tours, or maybe just generalized whale or sightseeing tours, right? So, and that is led by, the tourist industry mostly, versus a sustainable industry that feeds our local people and drives local businesses. And we can see where that clash is coming. And I know a couple years ago, you, as well as a few other people in our community, worked on some bills with prior Senator Hanabusa. And that was to kind of help manage some of the areas. Could you kind of speak on some of those prior things and where they didn't go?
You're talking about the recent bill?
Well, the recent bill, we reintroduced it, but we were talking about how do we start managing some of these resources.
The state needs to know who's operating and how many trips and what the real impact is. I mean, that's why we do catch reports. Every year every month, fishermen do catch reports so that the state knows what's getting taken out of the water. The state needs to know the impact.
For the commercial.
Yeah, for
the commercial activity
this
side.
bill, isn't this bill?
Yeah. So like in your industry, the way the state manages their resource is they require you to provide how much you catch on a monthly report.
Yeah.
And they can judge by that as if they're
How the
taking too
resources,
much or they're taking too little, and that's when they close an area or open it.
They study the catch. They use the catch reports to. I don't know the word.
I think it's like managing a resource or something.
Yeah, they use the catch report to manage what resources we use. But when operators, this bill provides that the state permits these operators
yes,
to use.
Starts permitting the operators, because on the commercial end of it, meaning the commercial activity side of it, we don't get those type of reports. They report because they have a commercial license, but they don't report like transits or what they're doing, right? So we don't understand what their impact is on the resource. You as a fisherman who've been doing it for 30, 40, 50 years could tell us what the impact is, but they don't rely upon those type of data. unless we come and testify. So we have to look at other ways of asking the state to look at these. How do we compare these balances? And I think the bill that you helped produce a couple years ago that failed, and then we reintroduced it this past year, and that was for the state to regulate all ocean waters, regardless of where they come from, meaning a private harbor or a public harbor, meaning a state harbor. Mm-hmm. And that way they can get a better grasp on, like what you're saying, what's going on. Because currently what's affected us was we have a private harbor down from us, and we had the potential of another private harbor, which has since been changed. Mm-hmm. And they're going to create, you know, just a pond instead of, in my words, instead of a harbor for the temporarily. But when you see that impact of the private harbor and the state not being able to control those activities, it's, you know, kind of damaged, or it affects production that is regulated by state. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I guess that's where I'm trying to get our point across here. Yeah. You know, is, you know, if we're supposed to be maintaining and stabilizing our resources, what's more important? You know, and I know we always talk about our land, but we really need to focus on our refrigerator, which is our ocean base. And I think that's where you come in, you know, with your knowledge of what you catch, how you catch it, how you operate, and the effects that these non-fishermen do to it. Yeah. Yeah, so.
It's, you know, they don't know, yeah. They don't know. You have to be in it to learn it and to understand it. And it's a lot of time it's just, you know, you have to educate them. And that's the hard part, yeah, because like I said, the captains and the crews, they come and go, yeah. So we're always on it, yeah, I mean, and then we spend a lot of time, you know, going after boats, I mean, and trying to be nice about it. But when they in our area and they're disrespecting the gentleman's agreement and running real shallow and running over schools, you know, we cannot help but to get a little angry about that. Yeah. So.
No, you're trying to protect your industry and your livelihood. Yeah. You know, and we can look at the other side, and it's not like we're anti-commercial activity. I mean, that's not it. You know,
friends, yeah.
You know, we have to have this balance out there. But at times when, you know, something is tilting to where a resource is becoming hurt by it. And I think our side is one of the only sides that really doesn't have an ORMA, right, or an ocean managed area. And there's pros and cons with that. I mean, we've had these discussions in the community in the past, and we did do a little template on our resources, and I think we can become more like the example of where we can go with these, because sometimes in ORMAs, you'll get pretty much all commercial activity, and therefore you pretty much kill your grounds. And that's not effective either. I mean, I'm not a fisherman, but you know, you can just see, you can see by these resources, because it's like an environment out there, right? When you lose these fish in these particular areas, then what happens to the rest of that environment out there?
It's all connected, yeah. Like the yellowfin is connected to when akuli first spawn, and then the juvenile halalu, when they're like this is food for the yellowfin, yeah, that come offshore, and the tunas and the marlins that come offshore. So it's a really important resource within the environment. And then later, when they get bigger, then it's an important resource for consumers, yeah. Yeah,
so when they're little ones, then they're feeding the larger tuna that would come in. Yeah. You know, so if we didn't have those little ones, then we'd have
20, 30, 40 miles offshore, and that's a food source for them, yeah.
You know, so I mean, it is this balance of the environment, just like the balance of how do these businesses operate, you know, and how do we all kind of work together. So I think, you know, this bill that, you know, currently is waiting for governor's signature, it'll help the state manage other resources that come out of all sources. And I think it'll give us a better idea of what's going forward and make it, you know, a more fair playing field, because currently you're mindful of all these rules and regulations, and you have to pay for your commercial license and all this type of activity, versus, you know, it's not quite fair coming out of, you know, private places that really doesn't have to regulate all that type of state requirements, outside of, you know, your business requirements, but, you know, it's just called managing the proper resource. And I think that's something, you know, I want to thank you for that, because, I mean, you've been a long advocate for this on all the resources, not just the akuli, but the ocean resource itself. I mean, I've learned a lot from you, and I appreciate that.
Noise impacts everything, you know. I mean, so they got to be mindful about that. Yeah, at least care, you know. And it doesn't take much to go deeper. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really doesn't. I mean, we do it all the time. You know, just to set a good example, we try to run deep as much as we can, and follow the same guidelines that they have. You know, we don't have to. We didn't agree to it, but we do it just to set a good example.
Yeah. I mean, because, you know, those animals that they're looking at, you know, are just as important. You know, the dolphins, or they're looking at turtles, or, you know, the whales. I mean, those are all, some of them are seasonal, but I mean, they're just as important to our resource as well. Yeah. And, you know, and when they get displaced by feeling annoyed at times, you know, I think that's where we have to start looking at the balances. And hopefully we can all start having those discussions. I know the state is going out and they're looking at their new 5-year plan, you know, and they're having discussions on that too, and where we're going as a state with our ocean resources, because I mean, that's what we're known for, you know, our play and our food source. So how do we create these balances going forward? And I'm sure you've seen, you know, some of the runoff that has killed some of our nearshore reefs, and we no longer have certain grounds for anything.
Yeah, the Channel 8 streams did a job on Waina.
And especially when they did the deep draft harbor. I mean, you've told me that they killed a whole bunch of grounds. Yeah. You know, not looking going forward on what's happened. So I think those are the kind of things that we need to be more attuned to and be mindful, because, you know, after we're gone, you know, we got to make sure we educate those next generations.
You know, you keep all this manao and this knowledge, and then, you know, once you're gone, nobody knows. Yeah. That's right. So, but you carry that baseline. Yeah, you know what it was like. So it's important to share it now while you're around.
Yeah, and that's what I you know, hopefully that's what I'm going to be doing too. You know, it's like what I've learned from you and my other mentors is, how do we take it forward? You know, no way am I ever a commercial fisherman, but at least I have enough knowledge to take it forward and say, hey, you know, just as much as we need to protect our watersheds and our land environment, we must also protect our nearshore waters and our resources out there. Because if we don't have that, then we'll import all our food. I mean, just really all our ocean food.
Yeah, that scares me.
And that's truly scareful. Yeah. You know, I mean, that's not healthy. It is not healthy. You know, and, you know, people expect to have truly fresh fish. Or if we just want to have fish grown in cages, or fish grown on land, I mean, that's entirely different. You know, and that's not a great resource either. But I mean, those are the kind of things we really need to talk about, and how do we protect a natural setting and have people be able to run local businesses and keep other businesses operating.
It's just we need to respect one another, and the captains need to educate themselves. That's all. It's, you know, it's local style, yeah. You know, just respect. You know, just like surfing, you know, you respect one another in a lineup. Yeah, same thing.
Yeah, it would be the same thing with just boats, right? Respect each other's boat, and we all live better on the ocean ways. You know, that's exactly what I think we should do more of education. Yeah, maybe the state can get in line with helping with that education if they're serious about protecting our resources. That's what I definitely see. Well, I guess I'm going to kind of wrap it up a little bit. I truly appreciate all your knowledge and really all your hard work. I mean, you not only fish, but you're always there.
Thank you.
For talking about the resources, managing the resource, having the institutional knowledge. I appreciate it, and I appreciate you coming in and fighting for your industries, because not a lot of people do that any longer.
Yeah, thank you very much for having me here. Yeah.
Yeah. So we have good fishing, you know. Bring home good food. But you really do. I mean, you help everybody out. I'm really thankful to have you as a friend, Carl. So I guess we will call that a show. I'd like to thank Carl Jellings Sr. for joining us. He's a commercial fisherman off of the Waianae coast since the 70s. And thank you for joining us for another Jordan's Journal, and see you soon. Aloha.